hatchbacks. Traditionally, we buy this sort of car because it's sensible, practical, frugal, affordable, and good value for money. But lately, there's been a new kind of hatchback permeating our market that isn't so many of those things. I am, of course, talking about the hot hatch. That's right, same compact shape, but loads more performance packed in. Volkswagen has recently introduced one of the most revered badges in hot hatches to India with this, the GTI. It may look like a Polo, but I can assure you it is so much more than that. However, this sort of performance does not come cheap, and if you're shopping in this market, you cannot ignore one hatchback that we have always regarded to be excellent when it comes to handling and performance. It is, of course, the Mini Cooper S. Now, which of these two does a better job of getting your spine tingling? That's exactly what I'm here to find out. But before we hit the road, we do have to go back to one niggling fact. The GTI does look a whole lot like the regular Polo, even though it costs nearly thrice as much. Yes, it has 3 doors instead of 5, different bumpers, bigger wheels, and LED headlamps, but the similarity is too strong to ignore. What you make of it is up to your tastes. Some will have expected a bit more attitude, but real enthusiasts will know that subtlety is part of the hot hatch formula. It makes for a great sleeper car. Pull away from a set of traffic lights and nobody will have seen it coming. The Mini Cooper is not subtle. It wants to be noticed, it wants your attention, and it's as much about looking cool as it is about going fast. It's got that lovely retro theme all over the outside with its round headlamps, cute tail lamps, and wide open grille. Its windows are small and upright, the wheels are pushed out to the corners, and of course, there are the racing stripes. We would have liked bigger wheels, and the good news is that they are on the options list. Hop into the VW GTI and again you'll find a cabin quite similar to the normal car. The dash is largely the same, as is the switchgear, but there are a few things that make it a bit more special. There's the racy flat-bottom steering wheel with paddle shifters this time, thankfully. There's a much larger touchscreen infotainment system and some nice red contrast stitching. The biggest difference though are the GTI specific seats. They're not leather wrapped, but the tartan finish is a classic touch, and they're supportive while also being really comfortable. You also get plenty of space both in the front and the rear, where you can actually fit 2 adults, and the boot is much bigger too. Oh, and one more thing. While you do get a spare tire as standard in the GTI, in the Mini you don't. The Mini continues its retro theme on the inside, where you'll find that classic circular theme everywhere from the dash to the dials to the doors. There are toggle switches to operate just about everything, loads of LED ambient lighting, and quality is right up there with proper luxury cars. The VW is well built too, but the Mini is just a bit better. The coolest thing by far though is Mini's version of BMW's iDrive infotainment system, which sits inside this LED ringed housing that lights up to show various functions of the car. It's also loaded with equipment including this panoramic sunroof, but bear in mind that much of it is optional extras, and that can really drive the price up quite quickly. The back seat feels tiny and is best for kids, and the small boot will only hold a couple of soft bags. And now that that's out of the way, without further ado, it's time to take these hot hatches out onto the street where they belong. Now the first sensation you get when you set off in the GTI is that everything is very calm, very easy. The steering is light, I have a great view outside, my seat is very comfortable, and the DSG automatic gearbox is shifting smoothly and taking care of everything, quite frankly. It feels like I'm driving a regular Polo GT TSI. There's no indication of the potency that lies under the bonnet. And potent it is with 192 horsepower from a 1.8 litre TSI engine. All you have to do to unleash it is squeeze your right foot just a little bit harder. There we go. But then, to get into true hot hatchback territory, you just need to tap the gear lever down once to put it into sport mode, and that really transforms the car. Now the responses are completely manic and the car is on the boil. Oh my god! Haha! Look at it go! If I do have a small criticism about this powertrain, it's probably the sound. Yes, that does make a nice little snarl, but I do wish it was a bit louder and nastier sounding to complement all the massive performance that this car does have. There's hardly anything separating these two on performance. The GTI getting to 60 kph in 3.39 seconds and the Mini in 3.18 seconds. The VW crosses 100 kph in 6.75 seconds with the Mini at 6.44 seconds. It's in roll-on or kick-down acceleration where the GTI is a bit quicker, getting from 20 to 80 kph in 4.18 seconds compared to the Mini's 4.50 and doing 40 to 100 kph in 4.46 seconds to the Mini's 4.93. What's also amazing is that through all of this, it rides really well. It's so comfortable. That's right, Volkswagen has made sure not to ruin the Polo's everyday usability and comfort in the transition to GTI. It soaks up bumps just as well as the standard car and doesn't feel overtly firm like you might expect. And now onto the handling, which is rather interesting because this GTI has been raised for India and it's a bit higher off the ground than anywhere else in the world. And that has its effect on the way this thing goes around corners. Yes, there is a touch of body movement and body roll at higher speeds and round corners, but then again, it's not enough to make it disconcerting. In fact, it just adds to the drama and the enjoyment. It's still very eager to turn into corners with the steering. Although it's very light at low speeds, it weighs up nicely enough around corners. It's still a bit loose, it's not perfect, but I live with this, honestly. I will live with this. And you want to live with this, with all the performance on offer. So the Volkswagen is a little on the soft side, but it's still super quick. It has a lot of grip and it's incredibly easy to drive fast. Even a novice could get the most out of this car. That's quite a lot to contend with, so how does the plucky Brit, the Cooper S, compare out on the same road? So in the Mini Cooper S, you will, if you forgive my pun, feel a little bit more cooped up than you do in the GTI. That's to do with the smaller windows and the upright windscreen. It's all very retro, but that's the price you pay, I suppose. The seats too, they're a touch firm, but they're actually very, very supportive. So you'll be thankful for that in the Benz. They're good, but they're just not quite as comfy as the ones in the GTI. The next thing you notice is that the steering is a little on the heavy side. It's not terrible, but when you're making U-turns and parking, it can be a bit of a bother. That makes the Mini a bit more cumbersome to drive around town, and what doesn't help is the stiff suspension. The other thing you notice is that the ride is a bit on the firm side. That's why I'm being tossed up and down just a little bit. This car is even fitted with dynamic dampers, a 90,000 rupee option. But in any of the settings, it always feels a bit too bouncy for your liking. Now the Cooper S does come with drive modes, which are thankfully standard and not optional, and they are green, medium and sport. Green of course being the eco mode and sport being the really fast, growly one. And to show off this car's full potential, I'm going to put it into sport mode. There we go. power for the Mini Cooper S comes from a 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine that puts out 192 horsepower, which is identical to the GTI. However, at 280 Nm, torque is a bit more than Volkswagen's 250 Nm. That torque also kicks in right from the word go. That's right, you feed in the power, it comes in really nice and early. The 6-speed automatic gearbox is doing a pretty great job. It's perhaps not quite as responsive as the 7-speed DSG in the Polo, but it's good enough, and when you keep it on the boil, it gets the job done just fine. Now, for all that firmness of the suspension and heaviness in the steering, it pays dividends when you're going around corners, because this thing corners so flat, and the steering gives you so much more confidence than the one in the GTI. The GTI is not bad, but this is just next level. It is a bit more demanding of you as a driver. It requires you to work a little harder, but I guess this makes it more rewarding when you get it right. Well, after a day's driving, suffice to say, both these cars have way more performance than you'll ever need on Indian roads. However, we have to pick a winner, so let's see how they stack up. Now, the Mini Cooper S will continue to be one of our favorite driver's hatchbacks. Apart from the fact that it drives so well, it also has this lovely retro charm, and it feels so nice on the inside too. However, these days, hot hatches are about duality, being multiple things to multiple people, and that's where the Mini starts to fall down just a little bit. You see, the GTI is more practical, more spacious, and more comfortable than the Mini, and it does all this without sacrificing an ounce of that performance. It's still incredible to drive. And then you have to factor in the price. You see, the Mini is a fair bit more expensive than the GTI, and that's before you start ticking the options boxes. And that's really what seals it for the VW. It's the car that's more practical, more spacious, more comfortable, with just as much performance and fun handling, and it comes in at a price that's a whole lot lower. So there you have it. It's a car that you would buy with your heart and your head, and that's what you want from a hot hatch.